The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Welcome back to Cherry Picking All Cherries fans, and this is a very, very special show. Now, before we get going, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and hit the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow, so go do that now. Also, I've got my right-hand man next to me, Mr. Matthew Harrison. How you doing, Matt?
Yeah, all good, Craig. Very excited with this week's edition. So yeah, can't wait to get started.
This is a very, very special show, and you'll find out in just 2 moments why. But before we introduce our special guest, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. Find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, of course, the 2014-2015 championship season was quite a memorable one for AFC Bournemouth fans, wasn't it, Matt? Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely lives long in the memory.
But I'm not going to say too much because I have got 2 very special guests with me. So, further ado, let's bring them in. Welcome to the show, Marc Pugh and Neil Meldrum. How are you both?
Very well, mate. Very well.
Yeah, very, very well. And thank you so much for joining me and Matt on this special show. So what we're going to do is cover the 2014-2015 season in this show. Of course, a very, very memorable year as well. So, Matt, do you want to take it away?
Well, no, I'll let you go first, Craig.
Yeah,
over to you.
Excellent, no problem at all. So, of course, the summer editions. First question, Mark. What impact did these players have with the current crop of players at the club already?
It was just, it was a real good balance of experience. You had Callum, he was a little bit unknown at the time, obviously really raw, scored a load of goals for Coventry, especially in League One. He was, absolutely, was it Championship League One? He was with Coventry actually, because he was smashing them in. I remember watching a game actually with Callum and he scored a hat-trick for Coventry and I thought, oh, he looks a real player. So yeah, I was really excited to play with Callum, and I didn't know much about Dan Gosling before, obviously, speaking to him. But after the first few days in training, you could just tell what a hard-working lad he was. Box to box, nick to goal, a great lad, great attitude, did everything right off the field as well. So I thought, yeah, real good signing. And Junior was brilliant. One of the most technically gifted players I've ever played with. Was really unlucky with a lot of injuries, but he pushed me loads. I mean, it was my job to stay in the team, and I had to be on it every single week because I had the likes of Junior and Ryan and Matt Ritchie who played on the wings, and it was a real difficult spot to keep. But I just wanted to keep performing well to keep Junior out of the team. But he was brilliant for pushing me because even when he was out of the team as well, he was such a top lad, got his head down, worked hard, and that's what you want. That's why we were so successful that season, because we bought into the philosophy. And Sirs, loved playing with Sirs. Every time I came into the pocket, you knew Sirs was going to open out on his left and just wrap it into you. Just a Rolls Royce in midfield. Could do anything with a ball. You knew he'd keep possession 9 times out of 10. And it was just 4 fantastic signings, and I believe they had a massive part to play in where the club finished in that season.
Neil, how would you rate Cherries' transfer business during that summer window?
Yeah, I mean, I thought echo everything that Mark said. I mean, they're all very Eddie Howe signings, aren't they? There's a good sort of blend there of youth and decent experience at that level as well. Like Mark said, Callum was banging them in for Coventry. Was very young at the time. I think probably 22, 23 when they signed him. I think Dan, I think would probably sort of class himself as a bit unlucky actually not to get a little bit more game time than he did at Newcastle. But again, really good player to bring in. Junior had done it at Burnley. He was proven at Burnley, and Drew Sermon again everywhere that he'd been. He proved himself. So, and they're very sort of solid players. I'd imagine fantastic to have in the dressing room. I'm sure Pugh will elaborate on that. Just the sort of players that Eddie, we were used to him bringing in, in his previous spell. So yeah, fantastic. I think they did great business that year, and so it proved.
So, first game of the season, Pugh, you scored in that one. Traditionally, from what I can remember, especially with watching Bournemouth throughout the years since being very young, we never really traditionally started a season well at times. This game, did you think that we were going to be on to a good season after this? Well, it was pretty much a complete performance from what I can remember.
Yeah, we were. We had a great pre-season. Loads of team bonding activities. Eddie was big on that, trying to get the lads together. And, you've got to perform individually and collectively as well. And when Matt Ritchie, put it in behind the centre-back, I made a diagonal run. My touch was pinpoint, absolute spot on, and then just slotted it. So, you knew what a gifted footballer Matty was. And, you make them runs and he's going to find you. So when you score after, I think it was, I can't remember the amount of seconds it was, but it was one of the quickest goals, I think, to open the season up. You breed confidence, and to beat Huddersfield, because they were a really tough outfit to go to. We always struggled with Huddersfield away. You look back to the playoff semi-final where we lost on penalties. It's always a tough place to go to, but when you beat up 4-0, it was a great way to start the season, and I just think it was like you say, a complete performance. We looked solid at the back. Callum absolutely, I can't remember who played centre back, but I'm surprised he played another game because Callum absolutely tortured him that day. Outfought him, and you could see he had everything. And then the questions were, could Callum back that performance up? And he certainly did throughout the season. So yeah, it was absolutely superb.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the back four there, because that brings us on nicely to the next bit. Craig.
Neil, how important was this back four to Bournemouth's successful season?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It was. I remember when they came in. Actually, going back sort of to the 2011 when Steve Cook came in, and he was very nervous in terms of sort of how he was with us. I remember interviewing him after his debut at Preston by the team bus, and he was kind of backing away, and he was very sort of young, raw, and nervous. But he was fantastic that night, and I think we all sort of felt that he was going to be a player. And then again, so it proved. Tommy Elphick just became the ultimate leader. I think I'm sure Pugh would agree in terms of his captaincy and just the standards that he set on and off the pitch. And he's still doing it now as part of the backroom team there. And the two boys at fullback. I remember watching Charlie Daniels for Orient before he came in, and we thought he was incredible, and he would really suit the sort of the way that Eddie wanted to set them up and the way that he wanted to play. And Frano's just an absolute, to coin Pewey's phrase, and he was on Sirs, he was an absolute Rolls Royce of a player. I think he had a lot to prove, in particular because of the way he was treated at his previous clubs, and I think he really sort of dug his heels in and wanted to show what he could do. And I think you look at those boys, and I don't think there's not an England cap there between them. But as they kind of progressed through, I think we're probably unfortunate that none of them ended up getting a cap. Actually, I've got to be honest. I think probably Frano was possibly closest. I think at one point, but yeah, fantastic back four, and legendary is the right word as well there on the caption.
Yeah,
most definitely.
Definitely. Pewey, just quickly, what were they like as teammates, these guys?
I mean, you look at the appearances. You look if some players play 30 games a season without complaining these days. They're made of glass, aren't they? But you look at all the appearances, and that's consistency. You've got a solid back line who they play every game, undroppable. Like you mentioned, Neil, there, Frano, he came from Charlton. I remember playing against Frano when he was at Charlton. He came on as sub for 15, 20 minutes. I absolutely tortured him, to be fair. And he was a little bit overweight. He'd admit that to himself, maybe because he was out of the team Charlton, but he came back in unbelievable nick when we signed him, and he could get up and down all day, 20, 25 overlaps a game. If Matty had the ball, he'd be round him, he'd be back defending. There's not many left wingers that I remember really getting the better of Frano. So he was quality. Chaz, as you've seen, like, our relationship was telepathic sometimes. It wasn't just by luck, though. I mean, Eddie worked on phases of play all the time, and me and Chaz would, do bits and bobs together. And, whenever I'd come inside, he'd get round me. If I was wide, he'd underlap. If I was inside in the pocket, he'd overlap. So it was really telepathic. And then I don't need to say too much about Steve Cook and Tommy. He was solid, reliable. Steve was brilliant on the ball. He was good at stepping in, and Tommy just did all the hard, horrible graft, winning headers and doing the horrible stuff, and kept his game simple. He wasn't as gifted on the ball as Cookie, but they complemented each other really well. Cookie just came in, and played some lovely football, whereas Tommy just mopped everything up. So, yeah, I can't speak highly enough about him, and all his lads as well. They led by example. Tommy was a great captain, and if anyone stepped out of line, they weren't doing things properly in training, then we had a team full of players who would be on at each other in the right way.
Yeah, no, it's excellent to hear that. And it's, for me, I just think you look at the legendary Arsenal back four, and this is kind of, for me, Bournemouth's version of it. A great quality amongst them. And obviously we've got Smithy as well, who's not on here, but we'll talk about Smithy a little bit later on. But if we go back to some of the results, as we started the season that year, obviously we picked up, a couple of wins, but then things kind of turned a little bit sour. Was there any particular reason why we started off so well and then didn't pick up some points, Pugh, or was it a case of some things gelling or new things being tried out by Eddie, or because we had such a strong start with that Huddersfield win, then we beat Brentford at home, I think, if I remember rightly, and then we kind of just went on a little bit of a downturn.
Yeah, I'm just trying to rejig my memory. You look at it, and it's fine margins in the Championship. I mean, if you look towards the back end of the season, we were nicking games and grinding out results. Your Readings away, I remember clearly. We didn't play particularly well, but we beat them away from home. And then a couple of draws. We got beat by Leeds at home, and it was a little bit bitty. And there was no real reason for that. There was no lack of confidence. We were in most games. The majority of games we outpassed teams without we probably lacked that end product in certain games where we should have won. And you get punished at this level, especially when you get to the Premier League as well. I remember our first game like it was yesterday against Villa, absolutely battered them, and then Gestetti scored an header. They weren't in the game. So when you get Championship and then especially Premier League, you can dominate games and you've got better strikers who will just punish you. And you look at Leeds, they had some good strikers at the time. I don't know whether Bamford was there. Blackburn had some decent strikers. Was that when Josh was there? Josh King, potentially? Not quite sure. So there were some good teams in there. And I think when we started, I think back to the Birmingham game, especially when we absolutely battered them. That's where we thought, we've a real chance here. We've got the ability to work teams.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, one that sticks out there for me is the Derby County game. If I remember rightly, I think that was when Lee Camp got sent off. Was that one? Was that this season when Lee Camp got sent off? And I think that was shortly after when they brought in Arta Boric. Potentially.
I mean, Eddie went through a stage where he was going through keepers like hot tomatoes there. So it's like, I mean, Campy was a great keeper. Campy just lives down the road from me now. We still go for runs. He was a really good keeper. But then Arta came in, and Arta was just so casual, and he was an absolute monster of a keeper. Great lad. You wouldn't get on the wrong side of him, but he just filled the goal. And if he made a mistake and the fans were on at him, he didn't care. He just cracked on with it and would make the next save. And I mean, that Derby County one, for about 3 or 4 years, we seemed to have a little bit of a battle with Derby. We'd beat them, they'd beat us, we'd draw. And they were always a real tough team. They went through, I think, 3 or 4 seasons where they got beat in the playoffs, and they were always thereabouts. And they didn't quite capitalise on the season they had. That was when Keogh was there at the back, who I loved winding him up because he was right hot-head. But no, it was an interesting time, really, because like you say, it was a bit of a, looking back, it was a mixed bag of results for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Just to have a little break from the league, the Carabao Cup, that year we had a decent run in.
Yeah, and there were some impressive results in the Carabao Cup as well, wasn't there, Mark? With Dan Gosling, of course, the star man. Did this run help with confidence in the league?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I can't remember if I played much of the Carabao Cup, if I'm honest, because I was playing a lot of league games. I weren't sure whether Eddie was resting me. I'm just trying to think back. Did I play in many of these? I don't know whether I did.
Pugh, if I remember rightly, he rested you in the FA Cup.
Was that right?
Yeah, you made 2 League Cup appearances that season, if my stats are right.
Okay. He rested me in the Good Cup there. I can't believe that. I'll have a chat with him about that. No, he does breed confidence. I mean, going on a run. I mean, Gozzo was flying. We actually called him the Cup man. He used to just nick a goal. So I mean, great run in the cup. We weren't famously known to have a good run in cups. We were always out in the fourth, fifth round max. So obviously we came up against Liverpool and they played really well that day. We could have, I think, if I remember rightly, we could have equalised for 2-2. And then we obviously missed our chance and they went to win 3-1. But again, we speak about fine margins. They had firepower that can hurt you. So, I think that helps us push on. I think if you're winning games, no matter who the team is. I mean, Cardiff, I remember that game, actually. We absolutely battered them. We outplayed them. We were brilliant that night. And, it definitely breeds confidence.
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously we touched on Mr. Boric, but Neil, what kind of impact do you think, from a journalist's perspective, watching the games week in, week out, reporting on it, what kind of impact do you think that Arta had on the side, especially in terms of the promotion?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to know him particularly well, actually, as an individual. So I think, Pugh would be able to sort of tell us a little bit more about kind of what he brought to the dressing room and what he was like as a character. I suspect he was your kind of archetypal goalkeeper in the sense that he was a little bit wacky. Pugh, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, most keepers have a little bit of a strange streak to him, but no, he was strange in a wonderful way. I always got on well with Big Man. He was really quiet. He'd never speak ill of anyone. I mean, even in training, he'd just keep himself to himself. You wouldn't get on the wrong side of him. So you just, if he cocks up for a goal or whatever, you just leave him to it because you wouldn't even say a word, else he would rip your head off. I've never seen any instances where he's been aggressive towards anyone. Just kept himself to himself. Even if we went away on, say, a tour, pre-season tour or what have you, we'd go out for a team meal or what have you, and we'd be like, "Where's Big Man gone?" And he'd literally just gone home early for an early night, and we'd go to pay the bill at the end, and he paid it. He's that type of character.
Okay.
So yeah, top lad, heart of gold, and I can't speak highly enough of him as a keeper and a person. So yeah, top man.
Yeah, he certainly made a big impact on the pitch. There's no doubt about that. I think a solid team starts with the man between the sticks, doesn't it? So, and I think Eddie's always been very sort of focused on making sure that he's got the right man in goal. And he definitely made a good impact on the pitch, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think if you look at the best teams in the world, it starts from your keeper, especially in modern day football. You look at your Edersons, your Allisons. If your back four's got confidence in the keeper that they're going to play out and be decisive in what they're going to do, then it breeds confidence. You look at instances this season where teams look a little bit nervy, might have lost games. Look at Ipswich, we've got Murich in goal. He can be a little bit edgy sometimes, give the ball away once or twice, and then it can panic you. So having a real good goalkeeper is massively important, and they have to play with the feet as well. And Arta was great with his feet; he'd just zing it right and left, and just be casual. He had everything really.
Yeah, and obviously once he came in, the tide sort of turned.
Yep. And I'll just go through some of these results because it does lead up to something which you're going to be quite fond of, Mark. So, of course, the 2-1 win at the Macron Stadium against Bolton Wanderers, the 1-0 home win against Charlton Athletic, and then a 3-0 demolition of Reading at Dean Court. But that leads up to a particularly special match, which is, of course, Birmingham City 0, AFC Bournemouth 8. And, of course, you scored a hat-trick, Mark. You got the nickname John Toshak. What was that game like? And could you ever envisage that happening against Birmingham City?
Well, I'm big on visualization. I have been from like a young age, and I always visualize playing in the Premier League. And I think it's important that you have that incredible self-belief and willingness to learn, improve. And I didn't I didn't have a particularly good first half, to be honest, by my standards. I know was it 3-0 up at half time or something? And I didn't play particularly well. And I think Eddie had a bit of a go at me at half time and saying, you need to pull your finger out or you're coming off. I know we're 3-0 up. So I remember I didn't eat particularly a lot of food before the game. And now, I'm massive on nutrition. This is where I really started to implement changes for fueling for performance and stuff. So at half time, I got some dates down me, got banana down me, hydrated properly, went back out and scored within 10 minutes, something like that. Might not have even been 10 minutes. And then just got another one, good header, great ball from Frano. And then I think to Ranty, he hadn't scored in ages. So I could have had the penalty for Maratrick, but at the end of the day, it's about the team. So I let TK take the penalty to, and just prayed he scored for his confidence, and he did, which was great. And then, my third goal, it was 2 headers, weren't it, the first 2? And then my third goal was kind of Gozzo, did he scuff it into me and tried claiming the assist? And then I just just finished it in the corner. So that was a really nice feeling. And to beat them 8-0 was incredible, because Birmingham's always a tough place to score. It's quite hostile. I know they didn't have that many fans in the stadium because they weren't performing particularly well, but we were excellent second half. We looked like we were going to score every time we went forward, and it was just amazing to see the smiles on the fans' faces as well, and we give them a real glimmer of hope, I think, of promotion after that game.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. I've actually got it on DVD. I believe they sold it in the club shop, so I've actually got it somewhere on DVD. And Neil, what was your memories of this thumping?
Yeah, I didn't do the game actually,
No?
which absolutely devastated about that. Yeah, I lucked out on that one. A couple of the other lads went up for that. Yeah, but obviously remember it well, and the John Toshak stuff as well still makes me chuckle now. I don't think I ever saw you score another one with your head, Pugh, but I can't remember.
You know what? I've scored a few in the head, Steve Fletcher still claims it's the best cross in history. It was against MK Dons in League One before, obviously, this game. And, he still says the cross was pinpoint. But, yeah, I can't remember how many I scored with my head, but I think there was one against Huddersfield as well. I'm not sure whether it was the same season or the season before. But, yeah, it's... going back to the DVD, though, this is how sentimental I am. I've got the DVD. It's still got the cellophane wrapper on.
I think the thing about this game was, and Tommy Elphick alluded to it in the book, was even when it was 7-8-0, you were getting the ball back to the centre circle, sharpish, going for 9. We want 9. We want 10. And I think that was the telling thing for me. I think there were actually other games later on in the season that really made me think, yeah, they can do this. For me, I think this was a bit early, and it was one of those sort of freakish results. But certainly the kind of the ruthlessness of the performance and the fact that they wanted 9, they wanted 10. That really did tell us, I think, from a journalist's point of view, it really told us that they meant business. But like I say, I think we'll get to games later on in the season, which I think the performances said more about. Yeah, they can do this. Automatics on, and we'll come to those. But yeah, it was a fantastic performance. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. And I have to get the DVD out over the weekend if I get 5 minutes and reminisce, Pugh, let you know what I think of the game, re-watching it again. But let's have a quick look at the midfield. Neil, on for you. Now, obviously, Gozza, he mainly made most of his appearances in the league that year from the bench, if I remember rightly. Arter and Sermon were kind of that solid sort of centre mid. But in terms of Matt Ritchie, in your opinion, would you say that this was possibly Matt Ritchie's best season in a Bournemouth shirt?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it was the season that we knew he had in him, which kind of brings me on. You look at the sort of transfer fees and everything that are involved in these 5, which are pretty much next to nothing really. But I think, Matt's fee was on the higher side for where they were at the time. I think we knew it. We knew he had it in him. Even from sort of his early days, and those of us that had seen him play when he was a lot younger. But yeah, he was fantastic, and I think, as Pugh alluded to earlier on, it's also as much about the guys that were behind them as well, with Charlie and Frano. I think I'm sure Mark would agree that having those guys behind them and the overlaps and the underlaps, and just the way that I'd say it was almost telepathic, really, on, like you said, on both sides of the pitch. But yeah, I think it was his best season. I don't think we saw better from him than that, either before or after.
Yeah, I mean, Pugh, you played with these guys. What was your thoughts on the likes of Mr. Arter and I think we might have heard about Stanislas and the other 3, to be fair, but Mr. Ritchie as well. I mean, that season, I thought, from my own personal view, I thought that was definitely his best season in a Bournemouth shirt. But yeah, Arter and Ritchie, what were they like to play with week in, week out?
Yeah, so if even to this day, if you were to ask any kid to go watch someone train and replicate the way he lives his life, the way he trains, look at Matt Ritchie, because I guarantee at Portsmouth now he'd be the best trainer, because in training he trains as he plays. He works hard, he demands the best, and he wants to win everything. So yeah, I mean, he's infectious. He can be a little annoying bugger sometimes, because he's like a little rash all over you, and he can't sit still, but he's absolutely brilliant, Matty. I went up to watch Newcastle train last season a couple of times, and he stood out. He works hard. He's got a lovely left foot. He knows where the back of the net is. And yeah, he was a pleasure to play with. Like Neil said, it was definitely his best season, scoring lots of goals. I don't think his assists are up there, but he must have had double figures assists as well. So to contribute to 25, 30 goals in a season is an incredible return in 51 appearances. And then Ariarta, yeah, he's an opposition's worst nightmare, because he likes giving them an earful, but he's technically so gifted. He was always willing to take the ball in tight areas, and he'd nick a goal as well. 9 goals. He's brilliant from midfield as well. He had a bit of everything. Tenacity, good in the tackle. Get a little bit hot-headed every now and again. We have to rein him in, but he needed that edge to him, and he was phenomenal that season. And it was really difficult to pick a midfield too, because you've got such good quality in there. They each complemented each other really well. I mean, whoever you played, you've got Sirs who can sit, Gozzo can also sit, H can sit, or they can play as 2 8s, 2 6s. They had so much versatility in there. But yeah, I mean, just all round good lads as well off the field. I mean, your team's only as good as that team unity you build, and Eddie was always big on that. He was always about looking at the profile of the individual who's bringing in. Is he going to add something on and off the field? Is he a good person, good character? And he only signs what he believes to be the best.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, like you say, I mean, it must have been, they must have been so up in training to, try and impress Eddie, because like you say, I mean, it must have been hard for those 3 to try and break into that team. But if I remember also, I think Harry scored a screamer at Watford, if I remember rightly.
Was
that the season he scored a screamer? Yeah. Where is Harry Arter these days? Is he still playing?
I spoke with, who did I speak to the other week? Smithy. I spoke to Smithy the other week, and I think he's in Dubai. He's living in Dubai, unless I've got that wrong. But he said he was on about going over to Dubai, doing some work with his agent and other bits and bobs. So yeah, I think he's over there.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, let's have a look back at the season. If there's any games here, Neil, that you want to jump in on, just please jump in. because there's quite a few decent results here, Craig, if I remember rightly.
There certainly was. Of course, we beat at home Brighton 3-2. Of course, going to Sheffield Wednesday, never an easy place to go. A 2-0 win. 0-0 draw against Middlesbrough. 2-2 draw against Ipswich. A 2-2 draw against Millwall. Beating Wolves away at Molineux. And then, of course, that 5-3 against Cardiff City at home. So, Neil, any games that really jump out to you from that bunch?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth saying that I think this was part of a 14-game unbeaten run, if I remember rightly, which I think yielded 11 wins as well. It was actually a game, I think it was in October, game at Bolton. What did I write down? Yeah, it was 1-1 with Bournemouth down to 10. And I sort of went back through the book, and it was Tommy's chapter, and he sort of alluded to the fact that was for him. That was sort of one of the games where he really thought, we're onto something here, just because of the way they dug in with 10 men. I don't know if Pugh's got any sort of great memories of that particular game.
Not massive memory of that one, to be honest. It was really so. We were just so focused on what we wanted to achieve, because what Eddie and the rest of the coaching staff did, we were blocking each set of games off. So it was like in 5 or 6 different blocks. So it was like, right, we need this amount of points from that block and this amount of points from that block. And we were just trying to reach that target, because he said, like, from previous seasons, this is the amount of points we need to get to the, in the top 2. So we were just laser focused on achieving that goal of getting that amount of points, and we weren't really concentrating on anything else. So it's all a bit of a blur, to be honest. When you're in it, it's just like, we're keeping that routine, keep the rhythm. And it was brilliant, because we were hardly training, because games were coming thick and fast, Saturday, Tuesday. And we weren't just going into games thinking, oh, what's going to happen here? We're like, right, what score are we going to win by? It was that, not that. It was just pure confidence and self-belief. It wasn't being arrogant. It was like just having that self-belief of, we're in it now. We're just before Christmas. We're on a real good run here, especially when we beat Wolves away. That's a really tough ground to go to. They were a really big club in the Championship at the time, and then Cardiff as well. We absolutely smashed them. To be fair, them scoring 3 did them a little bit of it should have been a bit more. I think we should have scored 7 or 8 that game. So no, it was we were just breeding confidence and taking it game as a time. It's a bit of a cliche, and you see people say in the media all the time, "Oh, we'll just next game as it comes." But I think that was really helpful, just blocking it off in 5 or 6 games and seeing where we're at.
I think it's those away games actually that stand out for me, looking at it now as a block of results. Those 3 away games at Hillsborough, Middlesbrough, and at Wolves. To get what it was 7 points from those 3 games. I think that really sort of stood them in good stead going into that Christmas period for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there was one other very, very big game pre-Christmas away at Blackpool, and I'll tell you what, this is one of. To be honest, it's not talked about as much as that Birmingham win, but I think it was such a pivotal result. And what I wanted to find out from you, Mark, it was one of the complete performances for me. What were your memories of your goal and this game in particular?
Pitch was terrible. Absolutely horrible. Conditions were Blackpool, basically. It was really and we had great support travel up there. It was great. And I remember my goal, like, just basically edited it down. It somehow crossed the line. And that's the way it was going for me that season. Sometimes if you're not scoring goals and getting assists as a winger, it might hit the keeper's foot and bounce away. But I think it trickled under him, and just run over to the fans. And when you beat Blackpool 6-0, it's always a tough place to go. 6-1, sorry. I mean, it was that game, and then we'll probably talk about it, the Fulham game as well. We battered them 5-1, I think it were, where the good teams win those games, and you've a real chance if you going away to Blackpool on a horrible. It's all right. We play nice, free-flowing football under Eddie Howe. We had a lot of questions asked about us. Can we go to your Blackpools? Can we go to your Sheffield Wednesdays on your horrible nights and win a game? And we did that, because you've got a real strong spine to your team. We had Tommy and Cookie, we had Sirs, H, Gozza, whoever played in midfield, and we had that spine. And then we've obviously got Jan and Callum up front, who was just absolute powerhouses who, could turn a game at any point.
Yeah, it's one that does stick in my memory vividly. But yeah, like the Fulham one you've just mentioned, which we'll discuss as well a little bit later on. But yeah, this one for me, again, it's because we've always found difficult going to Blackpool, quite difficult over the years. I remember we've had a few decent results, but what was the secret to scoring so many goals away, Pugh? Because we scored quite a lot of goals away this season, didn't we?
Yeah, we worked a lot on so Eddie and his coaching staff, Jason, they were really big on analysing the opposition and working out the strengths, the weaknesses, and we just exploited weaknesses. So on the build up to a game, we had Thursdays off, so Wednesday and Friday, we'd do a lot of phases of play on how we could hurt the opposition. So if they had a weak right side, we'd work on pressing the right side and the triggers and various bits and bobs. And I think our press made a huge difference on, winning the ball back high up the pitch. And then obviously we'd work a lot on, right, so if, for example, I won't go too complex with it, but so we had a movement we do. So if Tommy steps in, Charlie Daniels would go really high, I'd come into the pocket, Andrew Sermon would come out wide. So it'd kind of mess with them. And if the midfielder went with Sirs, it'd leave a big pocket for me, for Tommy to wrap it into. I could turn and then we could play our combinations. And it really did hurt teams. It can sound quite complex, but if you're dragging someone out of his position, which Sirs did, because the midfielder's saying, right, do I go with Sirs or do I block the pocket off? And if he leaves Sirs, then they play Sirs. And they just had so many problems to deal with. And that combination play that we worked on tirelessly every day in training, it really did all come into play this season, and teams just didn't know how to live with us. And then if they want to man mark you, then just let's go along to Jan, drop it into his chest and get Callum in the channel. So we had so many different options, and that's why the goals just kept coming. If they stopped us playing out from the back, then they leave 2v2 up top and we just ping it to the front two, who's just going to cause carnage. So yeah, it was joy to play, and it really was.
Yeah, definitely. And it's yeah, again, they probably should have put this one on DVD to be honest.
Yeah,
but,
they should have.
Yeah, I think, did they do a DVD of this whole season? I think they did. I think I've got it.
Yes,
yeah. I've got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it in my collection somewhere that I remember vividly. But yeah, Christmas, decent period, but then we kind of went on the back foot again. Craig, I think this is your part, I think.
Yeah, of course. So we had the 2-0 win at home to Fulham, the 2-0 win away at Millwall, before a defeat against Norwich, win against Rotherham away from home, but a defeat against Leeds, 2-0 at home to Watford, which was a good result, and then 3-1 against Wigan away from home, 2-2 against Derby, 1-1 against Huddersfield, defeat by Brentford, defeat by Forest, before a draw with Blackburn, and then a 2-1 win against Wolves at home. So we did do the double over them. But yeah, Matt, take it away.
Well, the interesting thing around this period is something from your book, Neil, which is this is quoted from the book. Craig, over to you.
Yeah, I'll read this through. So behind the scenes, The unrelenting pressure and physical demands of the Championship were taking their toll on Howe and his squad. Within touching distance of the ultimate prize, the Miracle Man had one more ace up his sleeve, but not before a disagreement with his captain. We lost to Brentford during the poor run in February, remembers Elphick, and me and the gaffer had a bit of a falling out after that game. There had been a bit of talk in the paper about us bringing in a striker on loan, and obviously the lads read and heard everything. As we came off the pitch that day, I said to Jason Tyndall, JT, we need a lift, a new face. The dressing room has gone flat. He looked at me a bit puzzled, but I think he felt the same really. We were on the way back from the game, and Eddie called me to the front of the bus and said, I hear you made a remark to JT. I told him what I told Jason, that we needed some kind of lift to get us over the line. He didn't take it very well, and we had a bit of a ding dong on the bus. I wasn't saying it out of spite or for any other reason than what I was saying in the dressing room. The vibe I was getting as captain was that we needed a kick up the backside and something to boost us. A few weeks later, though, we signed Kenwyne Jones. So there we are. That is a piece from your book, Neil. So yeah, it's it's quite an interesting one because I think Tommy was very highly respected by both Eddie and JT, wasn't he? And Neil, did you feel that you know even though Eddie may not have taken that well at the time, that he was going to act upon that?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few sort of things flying around at that time, and I think we all sort of felt February was a poor month with just the one result, and I think it's a key month as well. I think I think traditionally, since I sort of covered the club, traditionally they always had a little bit of a wobble post Christmas, as I remember. But I think February and March are such key months, as Tommy says, for getting over the line, or protecting yourself if you're at the other end of the table. And I think we all sort of felt that maybe they were running out of gas just a little bit. I mean, it was just so relentless, and the pressure was on. And I think they did need something, just a new face. It's not to say that there was a lack of ability in one position or another, but just sometimes, and I'm sure Pugh will agree, sometimes just a new face, somebody a bit different, a slight change of vibe can make the difference, can be the difference that makes the difference when it comes to things like promotion. I don't think, from what I remember, it's a fair old while ago, I don't think Kenwyne Jones was necessarily one of the names that was floating around, if I remember rightly. So I think it was a little bit of a shock to people when he came in. But I think he made a big difference. Again, I think sort of bringing somebody in with that kind of personality. Obviously, he's very experienced as well at the time. I think it did give them that lift that they needed at that moment in time.
Yeah, definitely. He did have a big impact. I mean, I think it was only the one goal he scored, but I think around the team, he definitely gave everybody a bit of a lift, which we'll touch on in a little while. But Pugh, you got any recollection of this discussion between Tommy and Eddie on the bus?
Whenever you lose a game, there's always an argument between Eddie and someone. So it's a norm, you know what I mean? You when we've lost a game and not played particularly well, you just try and avoid eye contact with him because he just needs a little bit of time to let his emotions settle, and then he'll analyse it, go away Monday morning, back to the training ground, let's move on, put it to bed, and we're all best mates. So yeah, there's always conversations. And Kenwyne, it was completely different to what we had. I mean, Brett Pittman was one of the best finishers I've ever played with, to be honest. Unbelievable finisher. You've got Callum, who had a bit of everything, Jan, who bit of everything again, but Kenwyne was just 6'6" giant. If you're under the caution, you need a late goal, or he could pop up from a set piece at any point. He scored against Ipswich, if I remember rightly. That was his only goal, and it was massive. So yeah, it was different, and it's sometimes good to have disagreements and a little argument, and it just proves you care. I mean, I'll be the nicest lad off the pitch, but on the training ground, I can be a right moaning little so and so. And I've had a lot of arguments with Eddie on the training ground, but once you walk off, you've just got to leave it to one side, kiss and make up, and crack on with your job. Because at the end of the day, you all want to push in the same direction, and you want to be successful. And teams that aren't successful have got too many what I like to call nice trainers and nice players. You don't want to be nice on the field. You've got to be ruthless, and you've got to have that winning edge.
No, it's great to hear the the stories from this season. And we had a little cup run in the FA Cup. Nothing too glamorous, but we did get a trip away to a Premier League ground at the time. Obviously with Villa. Craig, it's you.
Yeah, so we thrashed Rotherham in the third round 5-1, and then went to Aston Villa, where we was beaten 2-1. However, though, Neil, from a journalist and a fan's point of view, of course, it was great to go to Villa Park, but did you think at that stage that you would be covering the Cherries in the Premier League next season from what you saw that day at Villa Park?
I'm not sure if at that point, I don't think that was the moment where I really thought that it definitely would happen. But I think they showed. I did do that game, and I think they showed that day that they could compete. With teams at the highest level. There was no doubt about that. The gap that maybe some people expected to be there that day wasn't there. So no, I still don't think I believed it truly at that point, which is, is no slight on Pugh or anyone else. I just think it just seemed still so far fetched, sort of from our point of view as reporters. I think it was slightly later that we thought, well, and to be fair, it probably was the Fulham game really that, where we thought, yeah, this is going to happen, because from there on in, it was just fire all the way. So no, I don't. To answer your question, I still don't think I really believed it. We're natural cynics anyway, aren't we? Journalists. We always look on the negative side rather than the bright side. I'm sure Pugh and the rest of the guys in the dressing room, believed right from the start of the season. If not way before this Villa game. But for those of us in the press, it just still seemed a little too good to be true.
Yeah, it's I mean, Craig, did you get to that one? Because I remember being at this one.
I didn't. No, not Aston Villa away. Not Aston Villa away. I seem to remember, the 5-1 away at Rotherham wasn't there, but I remember seeing that result and thinking, well, that's good. Again, a high-scoring game away from home, but yeah, I think the next game. Of course, Neil's already mentioned it. Pugh, you've already mentioned it. Matt, you was definitely there. Was this one?
Yeah. I will always remember this game. Again, another complete performance. Now, I think this one was on Sky as well. I think it was on Sky TV because I think I remember coming home and the next day maybe watching the rerun, and the game actually looked 100 times better on TV with the free-flowing football and Cookie's goal. It looked 100 times better on TV, and not only that, I had a mate who went to the game as well and decided to get the train there and back and got on the wrong train and ended up stranded in Farnborough, but that's another story. This is again one of so many complete games of the season. But I mean, Pugh, what was it like to get this result at Craven Cottage? Because Craven Cottage for me has always been one of those sort of traditional football stadiums. I know they've developed sides of it now, but at the time, it was still kind of an old-fashioned stadium, close to the pitch and everything. And what was it like to get that win at Fulham? Was that then when maybe you, like Neil was just saying, was the time that you could possibly do it? Is this the time for you where you you possibly thought, yeah, this is it. We've got a very good chance of getting promoted now.
Yeah, it was a big game, that, and I love playing under the lights at night. There's a dew on the pitch. We were playing free-flowing football, trying to knock it about, and we knew we were better than Fulham as well. I mean, who did I come up against right back? I absolutely tortured him that night. Can't remember who it were now, to be honest. But Cookie's goal was an absolute screamer. I think Brett Pittman scored a worldie as well. He dribbled through about 3 or 4. That was an unbelievable goal. It doesn't get spoken about because of Cookie's goal. But yeah, that was complete performance from start to finish. I think we dominated. We were comfortable, and Fulham are no mugs. And to beat them 5-1, it was a great night, great performance. And after about 15 minutes, you saw the fans turning against them. They were gone quiet because we were just keeping possession. But we weren't just keeping possession for the sake of it. We were productive. Our patterns of play were coming out all over the place, and you could really see what we're working on the training ground. It was coming to play, in the most important occasion.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then results obviously, continued from there, didn't they? And some decent ones here. Craig, over to you, mate.
Yep. So, of course, the 4-0 home win against Blackpool, 1-1 draw at Cardiff, and then a 3-0 against Middlesbrough as well. And of course, Kenwyne Jones, we did mention him, and his impact. But Pugh, how do you feel that he fitted into the squad and the important role that he played when on loan?
Yeah, he fit in really well. He was a really nice guy. He was a handful. If his first touch wasn't right or he wasn't winning headers, then he'd just put himself about and make it difficult for centre halves. He was a little bit unorthodox. You didn't know what you were going to get from him. But there's a reason why he played at a high level, and Stoke play that type of football where they just drop it into him. And some games, it's not going to be pretty football. You're going to go away to your Ipswiches, your Blackpools, that type of game, and you've got to use a big man. And a lot stuck. And yeah, he scored a massive goal for us. It was a really big goal, because if you lose that, 1-0 or 2-1, something like that, then that confidence drops a little bit. But to get a point away is massive at Championship, especially around March time. Every point counts. So yeah, he made a huge impact. And like we touched on previously, it's a fresh face as well at competition. We had some 3-4 top quality strikers anyway, and to add Kenwyne to it, it just pushes people along to perform. I mean, that's what you want. You want competition, because if you haven't got that, then you just get set in your comfort zone and you just plod along. I'll be playing next week. It doesn't really matter. That wasn't the case. You need to play well every week in a good squad of players to keep your place. So yeah, he was a good addition.
Yeah, definitely.
And sticking with the striker theme, the forward line, when I was looking back, obviously, at Neil's book and other materials and doing the research for this, it's, we can all remember Callum getting the plaudits for, the 23 goals he scored that season, which obviously is an impressive tally. But, the likes of Brett, with 14 goals, and Jan with 17, I think sometimes they get a little bit overlooked that season. Because, I mean, like you've touched on, Pugh, Brett being, the finisher he was. I mean, I remember watching Brett when he first was plucked out of the youth team, when we had so many injuries, and he was just chucked in at the deep end. And, as a young player, you could even see then that he was going to be a decent finisher. And, to score those 14 goals that year, that was massive. But Neil, do you think that maybe sometimes the likes of Brett and Jan get overlooked during this, when people look back and reminisce about this season?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think people naturally are sort of drawn to Callum's performances and his numbers as well when you look back at this season. But I think Jan scored a lot of important goals, at sort of key moments, and in his work ethic and it was just phenomenal. Same with Ranty as well. You know, he didn't get the numbers, but when he was on the pitch, you know, his work ethic and his contribution and his dedication to what they were trying to achieve was phenomenal. I mean, I couldn't have been happier for Brett, to be honest, that season. I mean, what a player, just phenomenal for that club. You know, scored at all levels as Pugh did. You know, just naturally gifted finisher. You know, one of the most naturally gifted I've seen. You know, at any level in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net. And you know, him coming back was another sort of key moment in what followed. You know, when he came back, and yeah, it was a fantastic season, brilliant numbers, and yeah, it would be, I agree with you. It would be good for those guys to maybe get a little bit more recognition. You know, I think, you know, in the sort of the core support, you know, those who really get it, you know, such as you guys, you know, you know the score, and you know what kind of contribution those guys made to that season. But you know, obviously people are going to be naturally drawn towards Callum because of those numbers, which are just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing with Brett is that, you know, I was gutted he didn't get that chance in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he would have played in all 4 divisions for Bournemouth, and, you know, possibly maybe even scored in all 4 divisions for Bournemouth, which would have been some accolade, you know, for a player like him who would have thoroughly deserved it. But Pugh, just to touch on Ranty for very, very quickly. Now, you could always see he was a decent footballer, decent player, but was it a case for Ranty that maybe he didn't really settle, maybe playing in the English game or maybe in the country itself?
Yeah, it was a big change of environment, and the intensity levels that Eddie expected us to train at were ridiculous. He was a great kid, Tequila. Not a bad word to say about him. It could be really frustrating sometimes if you've got him in a passing drill in training. You know, because he'd like to take that extra touch. It was because he's come from abroad. He'd like a little bit more time on the ball than we were giving him. But yeah, I mean, he scored a massively important goal at Burnley. Worldy, actually, weren't it, that season?
Yeah. I think that was the season before, wasn't it?
Was it season before? That just sticks out as a Tequila. Yeah. Wow, he's alive now. And but no. I mean, he had big shoes to fill. I mean, you look at the goals Brett scored most of them probably from off the bench that season, because I always refer this season a bit unfairly really on Brett, because he's an incredible striker. I always go on about Jan and Callum, what a great partnership they had. But whenever Brett played, whenever he came off the bench, it was always an handful. He always got chances, got himself in the right positions at the right time, and he scored some unbelievable goals as well. We touched on it, the Fulham goal, and it wasn't just in the box, it was out the box. He had every type of finish, and yeah, it's a shame he didn't get an opportunity in the Premier League. But yeah, Tequila maybe just didn't settle with English football. I'm not quite sure where he is now, or who he's still playing for. Does anyone know?
I no idea.
I'm not sure at all. Not sure.
We'll have to do a search for Ranty and see what.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. It could be anywhere. But no, great kid. Wanted to do well. Bags of pace. But yeah, if he was a little bit more physical, a little bit more ruthless, then he could have, maybe added to his goals that season.
Yeah, definitely. And goal from Brett that always sticks in my mind was like a 25-30 yard screamer against Wickham in the I think it was when Big Fletch came back in the -17 season. That was a cracking goal. But yeah, let's have a look back at the results, the sort of the run into the big end of the season.
So these were the results that pretty much lined it up. So we beat Birmingham City, doing the double over them, 4-2 at Dean Court. A 2-0 win at the Amex. 1-0 at the Medeski Stadium, as Mark mentioned earlier on, and then the 2-2 against Sheffield Wednesday. And I just want to go back, Mark, just going back to that, Reading game in particular. We were speaking about it before, we started, and we scored, was it the 4th, the 5th minute? And then we did hold on. Yeah. But teams that do win titles, teams that do get out the Championship, sometimes you have to scrape those results over the line. Did you feel that, right, this is going to happen now? We are beating teams when we're maybe a little bit under the cosh.
Yeah, the Reading one stands out. I always say Birmingham, Fulham, Reading, because the Reading one we rode our luck a little bit. We had to withstand a lot of pressure, especially the last 20, 25 minutes. We didn't play particularly well. The pitch wasn't great. It didn't really suit us because we couldn't get our free-flowing football going. Didn't create an awful lot of chances, if I remember rightly. So, yeah, just to grind that out, we scored early on and we showed great character, great unity. So that was a real good run of fixtures for us. It coincided. I think it always helps. We went away as a team to Dubai to do a bit of training to, just get a bit of team bonding as well, which that always helped massively. Although after going back to the previous set of results, we went after Middlesbrough, I think it were, and yes. I got a kick on my ankle that game. I landed in Dubai and my ankle swelled up like a balloon. I spent one day in the sun and then I had to fly over to Rome to see a specialist to get my ankle sorted. So that was quite interesting. I saw this big Italian doctor and he stuck a pencil right in the back of my Achilles and nearly jumped through the roof. But he sorted it right out. So yeah, that was funny. Great set of results. We're a little bit disappointed with Sheffield Wednesday one at home. I felt like we should have won that. That was a little bit of a setback, but no, you take 10 points from obviously 4 games.
Yeah, I mean,
the Wednesday one was Frano got sent off, didn't he? And then Smithy gave away the penalty last minute of the game.
That's right.
Yeah, which I think probably really shows the sort of team spirit actually more than anything, because I know he was really, really upset after that, and needed a lot of arms around the shoulders from his teammates, because such a key moment in the season. I think he probably felt like he may have cost them there potentially with that result. I don't know if you sort of remember much about that period, about the sort of aftermath of that particular game. But
now you mentioned it, I remember it. Yeah, the games all roll into one, bar a few, when it's such a long season. But yeah, no, I mean, I can't remember where we were in the table at this point, though. How close was it? Were we top? Were we second? Or I can't remember.
Certainly in the top 3, I think. But it was nip and tuck. There wasn't much in it. So
yeah,
it's the Reading game. Just to touch back on that briefly. Now, I remember driving up to that one, and that is probably the most nerve-wracking 1-0 I've ever watched Bournemouth play, because, like I say, scored 4th minute. For 86 minutes plus, we were, holding on to this 1-0. And if memory serves me right, I think Eddie brought Kenwyne Jones on and stuck him alongside Tommy and Steve at the back, just to head everything out the box in the last few minutes, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so I think that's another contribution from Mr. Jones, apart from just that one goal he scored. But never want to go through a game like that again, because that was nerve-wracking, really nerve-wracking that night. But yeah, it's on to this one. Pugh, we'll touch on your magic moment shortly. But Neil, in terms of this game, what was your memories of this night? Because, I mean, what a night. I mean, TV cameras there, little old Bournemouth on the verge of clinching. I hate that term now, little old Bournemouth, but at the time, that's what everybody was saying. But, we're on the verge of clinching promotion to the world's best league. I mean, just what was the memories of that night from your perspective?
So the memory for me was I wasn't there. I was in the office.
Oh.
I had to. Obviously, the reason for that being was that we knew it was going to happen. I think everybody really felt it was going to happen, but it was going to, because obviously it was an evening game, it was going to be a mad rush to get all the coverage that we wanted to do in the print edition. Normally we would do back page, couple of pages inside, which is pretty straightforward, even on a tight deadline for an evening game. But we actually did a full wraparound edition and a couple of pages in the news at the front end, in the news section, and all the stuff at the back as well. So I needed to be there to put that wrap together and make sure that the paper actually made it onto the presses that night. So I wasn't at the game, but obviously we had it on the telly in the office, it was no massive surprise that they did what they've been doing all season really, and just battered another team, and did it in style. So it was fantastic. Even just being in there in the office with plenty of other people, it was magic. Yeah, really great occasion.
Yeah.
So you got the short straw and Perrick got the sombrero. He was flying around.
I'd love to say it's because I was paid the big bucks, mate. You see, that I had to control everything and make sure that stuff happened. But somebody had to be there, so may as well be me.
But at least you got to see it on the TV, and obviously you obviously oversaw all the press for it, which was a massive night in the club's history. But Pughy, your goal. I think there was a famous commentary line, wasn't it? It was Pugh
was.
Do it. Yeah. What was your? Was it Richie? Richie put the ball across. Was it?
So Richie put the ball across, and I only had one thing in my mind. Feeney was in front of me. I thought he knows what I'm going to do, but he's not going to be able to stop it. So I just chopped him and left foot. So he said after the game, he says, "I knew you was going to do that." I said, "I know." Only one thing was in my mind. I was like, get half a yard, get my shot in, and luckily I struck it sweetly. And just the ground erupted. The atmosphere was amazing. We knew after the first goal we were going to back it up and we were going to go on to win that game. It was just getting that first goal because I think Bolton had a couple of half chances early on. Looked a bit nervy at times, but then we just put them to bed. We battered them. But the emotion was incredible because you've worked so hard. You've visualised playing in the Premier League for so long and you were so close to it. And just for the fans as well, because obviously you fans have been through so much. You've seen the club just stay alive, and to see the smiles and what it meant to the town, especially afterwards when we went to party after getting promotion in town, it was absolutely incredible. So it'll live long in the memory bank, and it's something to tell the grandchildren, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember rightly, you lot ended up in was it Halo?
Halo, yeah.
Church. Yes. What a night. What a night. I mean, Craig. Oh, sorry, Pugh.
No, I was just saying we were Halo. We were at the top, and then everyone was down at the bottom. So it was an absolute ball ache. If you needed a toilet, you've got to walk through everyone. It was great fun. No, it was special, but it was quite funny because Eddie was like, "Have a great time, but we've got to win. We've got to win the championship on Saturday. So don't be too silly. Don't be too stupid." But I think the lads knew we still had a job to do, but we did have a cracking night.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Craig, you can remember the celebrations and everything.
Oh, the celebrations on the pitch. We was all there.
Yeah. That's all I can remember is just the pitch invasion at the end of the final whistle going, and that was it, just bombing onto the pitch. But I mean, what a night! What a night!
Yeah, it was amazing. And you look back and you just think, I think I did. You think, did I really appreciate what that night was? And I think you all do, but you just want it to come round again, don't you? Just to relive it, because it was some special night. It really was.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think everybody remembers Jeff's, the chairman, Jeff Moyston's Sky News appearance when he was being hoisted up in the change room there with his choice of words. But great night. great night. But yeah, we've got to ask, probably both of you this one. Eddie's thoughts, your thoughts on Eddie, was it a grand master plan he had from the start of the season, or was it just his way of managing and the way he motivated you guys and your patterns of play that, got you up that season?
Do you want to go first, Neil, or do you want me to go?
No, I mean, you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie is, he loves his players. He cares about them. His attention to details, absolutely phenomenal. Even after the original session on the pitch, he wants to spend, whether it's 20, 30 minutes on, your individual play to improve you, whether you're an attacker and you do a bit of finishing, crossing, you're a defender, you want to do a little bit 1v1 defending. It's never too much to ask. And his door's always open. There's been a lot of times I've been out of the team. A lot of times I've been dragged off at half time, and I'd be knocking on his door on a Monday morning and we'd be having an open, honest conversation. And that's a relationship I had personally with him and a lot of his other players. That's why he's been so successful. He's honest, and he just wants the best for his team, his players and his staff as well. So he's just tireless in everything he does. And whether it's pre-match, post-match, analysts on the opposition, and if he needs to put an arm around his player, he will do. If he needs to give him a bit of a bollocking, he will do. So it's he's got that lovely balance. In his earlier days, his man management, that was probably what he needed to improve on. But as time went on, especially in the Championship, he got that absolutely nailed. And there's no doubt in my mind that one day he'll probably manage England. It's probably a little bit too soon for him. I can't imagine Eddie Howe just doing 3 months of a year and having nothing else to do for 9 months. He'd drive him mad. He likes that constant trying to develop a player and improve players daily. I think if he was just picking a team for 2 or 3 games at a time, it wouldn't suit him. So yeah, he's next level. He really is. I can't compliment him enough.
Yeah, I concur with all of that. I mean, I think it's interesting actually you say that his man management was maybe something he needed to work on in the early days, because I think now he's become the kind of perfect blend of man manager and tactician. That's what he's kind of evolved into, I think. I mean, I've been on the wrong side of him a few times, and it's not nice. I can tell you that. But he does forget stuff, and he does move on, which makes him a really good person. I spent a hell of a lot of time with him doing the book, which he didn't need to do as a Premier League manager. And like I say, we have fallen out a few times in the past, but he does forgive and forget. But yeah, I think it's just his work ethic is just phenomenal, and I'm sure I dread to think what he's like now up at Newcastle in terms of just that relentless kind of work ethic. Because he was like that from day one, as a 29, 30-year-old when he first took over. I mean, you only have to look at his office there to see how thorough he is with everything. Yeah, he's phenomenal, and I completely agree. I think he'll manage England, but I don't think it's the ideal job for him. As Pugh says, I can't see how he would ever be able to sit on his hands for all of that time, other than kind of international windows. And I don't know. It would be really, really interesting to see how he would do it and how he would approach it, because he is a club man and he's on the grass. That's what he loves, and I'm sure that's still the case up in the northeast. No, he's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Craig, someone else has also told you that similar story, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and lots of people have said to me, and I've spoken to players and staff around the club at the time, and they've always said that Eddie Howe, and putting this to you, Mark, was he the sort of man that would turn up at 6 a.m. in the morning? If you come in early, he was already there, and he'd be the last one. He'd be turning off the lights at the stadium.
You have to get there at 5:30 to beat him. Yeah, was early. He'd like to be first in. He'd like to, whether it be he was doing his gym sessions, whether that's still the case, I'm not sure. He probably is. Does a bit of gym and gets his mind in the right place to obviously improve himself and improve everyone else around him as well. And he expects the best. And he brought me on so much as a player. And, in the earlier days, I probably didn't work on that attention to detail like I should have done, whether it be finishing, crossing. Mine's just that ability to be really strong mentally and use your brain. So, because I never had blistering pace as a winger, so I needed to be more intelligent, drag people into the pockets. And he worked on my timing, my movement, and just ways on getting the better of the opposition player. So yeah, he was just relentless in his pursuit for success. And I could tell after, when he signed me and then moved to Burnley, I was absolutely gutted, to be honest. But when he came back, there was only one thing I was doing, and that was signing a new contract, because I knew he developed me into the player I wanted to be.
And Neil, you did mention there as well the other side of Eddie Howe. Now, when you watch, Sky Sports and he's doing an interview, he's always very calm. He's very calculated. He, explains. He's very thorough with his answers. But again, I've heard similar stories where, he has given the hairdryer treatment to a player, but he has forgiven them and, backed down. Do you think that's such an important part of what's made him successful?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I guess that comes with age. I think we're the same age, actually, Eddie and I. And, so I can kind of relate to that in the sense that, I think once you get into your mid-40s, and you're not there yet, Pugh, but you'll get there, mate. It's, you do, but you grow as a person, through your experiences, but also just through getting older as well. And, I'm sure he approaches things differently, and he's a very different manager to the one that he was when he first took over. I mean, I sort of first had a run in with him when he was quite young, quite early into the job. And I'm sure if that happened tomorrow, it would probably be dealt with in a different way. But yeah, he expects perfection, from everyone that he deals with, and that included all of us as well. And if we didn't do things quite how he wanted us to do them, in the sense of, how we dealt with him and the things that we wrote, he let us know in no uncertain terms that he wasn't happy with it. And I'm sure he was the same with the players, if they didn't sort of meet his standards at any one time or another. He's definitely grown into probably a more rounded and measured person, I would say. And obviously he's got a family of his own. He's had kids since then. He didn't have kids or anything like that back then, and that changes you as well. So yeah, he's a phenomenal guy, and I can only really admire everything about him, and how he is as a person as well, and what he stands for is fantastic.
Yeah,
Definitely. I think, for, Eddie Howe to have a grudge with anybody, and keep that grudge, you would have had to do something pretty bad.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, there was more than stars that we've spoken about already of this promotion season, and you can see, quite a few of their pictures there. But, how important, Neil, were these players, to the Cherries squad?
Yeah, massively so. I mean, we've talked a little bit about Smithy already. 36 appearances is is a good number anyway. But he was always there, and I know he put in some really good performances near the end, particularly after that Sheffield Wednesday incident. Actually, Ian Hart, hugely experienced. What a guy to have around. When you're when you're sort of striving for that level of success to get into the Premier League. Phenomenal. Sean McDonald, big mate of Pugh's, fantastic guy, such a lovely guy, one of the best. Absolute pleasure to deal with, and so talented as well. Probably unlucky to only make those 10 appearances, I would say. Ditto Eunan O'Kane as well, one of the best to deal with, fantastic guy. Really well-rounded midfielder, dogged but skillful as well. And obviously Ryan Fraser's still doing it now. He was only a youngster sort of back at that point. Again, similar to Matt Ritchie, we expected really big things from him, and they came in the end as well. So yeah, I mean, five top players there, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
So when
Mark,
sorry,
go on, Matt.
no, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, I echo Sean McDonald there because I always rated him very, very highly. I always thought he was a great player. And yeah, Fraser put in a shift that season, and I always liked Ian Hart. I just thought his experience around the team at that time must have been quite vital for for the younger lads, Pugh.
Yeah, it was great. Even when he didn't play, he played so many games at a high level. He was just, in training, he put everything into it. He's got a lovely left foot and free kick. Scored some absolute lovely free kicks in his time. And in training, he'd whip them in, which was great to see. Lovely technique. Smithy, yeah. I mean, you look at the amount of appearances Frano made. I think Smithy came on right wing quite a few times, if memory serves me right, to shore up that right hand side. For about 10 of them appearances. So he played a lot of games, considering the amazing season Frano had. And then Maka, honestly, I know he's one of my best mates in football, but technically, in training, getting out of tight areas, unbelievable. And I think it was a season before he was really unlucky. I think he fractured his ankle when he was on a real good run of form. He was playing brilliantly, and that really set him back for a good 6-9 months. And he kept falling down with the odd injury here and there at the wrong time. And I think he'd have played a lot more if he'd have stayed fit. Ewan O'Kane, I mean, we speak about Gozzo, Sirs and H. Unbelievable talent. He just turn on a sixpence and get away from a midfielder, really technically gifted. He was only small, slight, but he had amazing balance. And Ryan was just rapid, good ability, pace to burn. He was strong for his size, and he was a real handful. And I mean, I knew I had to play well to keep him out of the team because he was chomping at the bit to get games.
Yeah, and completely echo what you've said there. And players like McDonald and O'Kane, very unlucky that they were probably in a squad with the likes of Arter and Goslin and Sermon. But when I was doing the research for this, and obviously looking through Neil's book and remembering from what I've read previously, this really hit home because as a leader, as a skipper, because obviously it happened to you guys at Tranmere. We went up to Tranmere that year, didn't we? We could have won the title, the League One title, but obviously we only managed a 0-0 draw that day, and obviously the Brentford Doncaster game ended up being what it was. But this little abstract from the book really hit home in terms of, and I think says a lot about Tommy's leadership. Craig.
Yep. So for Elphick, though, it was never going to be a case of job done. The Cherry skipper and his teammates had felt the pain of easing off against Tranmere 2 seasons before. The history makers had sealed promotion from League One at home to Carlisle United on the penultimate weekend of the 2012-2013 campaign, but could only muster a 0-0 draw. A week later at Prenton Park, the door opened for Doncaster and they walked through with a dramatic last gasp win over Brentford. Promotion, yes, but no title. There was no way we're going to go to Charlton after the Bolton celebrations and go through the motions, recalls Elphick. Nobody ever remembers the teams that are promoted in second place, do they? Who win the league that season? Bournemouth. Who went up in second place? No idea. The year we went up from League One to the Championship, we did ourselves over at Tranmere and missed out on the title. It was our fault, and there was no way we were going to do it again.
So I mean, Neil, when you were speaking to Tommy for the book, and obviously when he was speaking about this particular part of the book, the story, did that really demonstrate his leadership skills to yourself?
Yeah, it did, absolutely. I mean, we'd seen them sort of throughout that season anyway, just in the way he, like I said before, the way he is, the standards he sets, and the way he conducts himself on and off the pitch, which is exactly how he is now. It just says it all, I think, about the team, the squad, the manager, everybody who was involved that season, that, they weren't done. And as Pugh said, they were very sensible after the Bolton game, because the season wasn't done. But for a lot of teams, it would have been. We've done it. We've done enough. That's fine. Let's celebrate and enjoy it. But they wanted more, and I think that really sort of says everything about them that season. They were never satisfied. Almost, 8-0 at Birmingham, not satisfied. We want 9 or 10. 5-1 at Fulham, or it should have been 6 or 7. That the levels were just astronomical, and that I think that one sort of quote there from Tommy really sort of tells the story of that season in one little snippet, to be honest, about just how relentless and how brutal they were towards other teams and what they expected from themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to say, when I was researching, that really hit home. That did. But I suppose we better cover off that epic game, Craig, the Charlton game.
Yeah. The day we won the title. Neil, firstly, what was it like to cover that game up at the Valley?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I actually got to do this one, so that was nice.
Yeah,
it was great. It was one of those. Obviously, it was one of those games where, to an extent, for everybody else, the pressure was off. And it was just one big celebration, really, and that includes us. Because we all, despite what people used to say, we only ever wanted the team to do well and the club to do well, and success was good for the paper and was good for us as journalists as well. So that was all we ever wanted. So it was a real celebration for us as well as everybody else. And they just turned it on again, didn't they? It was a day of celebration, and they just did it in style. They were phenomenal that day. I think it was one of the best performances of the season that day. And it doesn't always turn out like that, does it? It's no matter what your intentions are. When you've already got promotion, there's bound to be a kind of an adrenaline drop, if you like, but I don't think there was. That I say, I think they were phenomenal that day, and it was one of the best performances of the season. It was all round a great day.
Yeah,
and Mark, walking onto that pitch at the Valley, it was a lovely day from memory. Of course, Watford were playing, of course, final game of the season. Firstly, how determined were we to get the win? But secondly, was there any concern of what was happening with Watford in the back of your minds, or were we just focused on getting the job done ourselves?
No, we just knew we needed to win. And the build-up from, obviously, going out on the Tuesday, the Wednesday, I remember it as clearly as day. The Wednesday, I went for a little jog. I was making sure my recovery was spot on. Proper food down my neck, staying well hydrated. Thursday came, fresh as a daisy, good to go. Obviously, get your session in Friday. As a team, we're just breathing confidence and knew what we needed to do. And you go out onto the field and you're like, right, lads, we were saying the same thing. Just keep doing what we've been doing all season, and that's outplaying teams. And first and foremost, if we outrun them, if we outwork them, then the rest will take care of itself, because we've got the ability to beat them. And I remember our running stats after the game, they're through the roof. Our midfield are just outrunning their midfield, and we just wanted to win more than them. And I think Gozzo might have been on the bench this day. Did Gozzo play?
Yeah, he did make. Whether did he come on? I think he come on.
He might have come off, because I remember him jumping up and down on the bench because something happened in the game. I think we were 2-0 up at the time. I think it were. Might have been 3. I don't know. So you're buzzing on the pitch, but again, you've got to be bulletproof. That mindset's going to be strong, even if you're 2-3-0 up. You know how quickly football can change. So I think to do it with a squad of players that have played in League One as well, most of them, you could tell how much they wanted it. And I created a vision board at 25, 26 years old. I think it was first championship season, and the Premier League badge was on there because that's all I ever visualised, playing in the Premier League. So to have it so close, me personally, I'm sure the other lads will say the same. We weren't going to let that slip. I wasn't for sure. You'd run through a brick wall for your teammate. You want to see the fans smile at the end of the game, and the celebrations were next level. So now it was about preparing well. One of my favourite quotes in life is "fail to prepare to fail." And we all prepared well. We were pushing in that same direction, and it was an incredible day. It really was.
Yeah, and obviously at the end there, the celebrations. I mean, what was it like? What was the emotions like when Tommy lifted that trophy and you all passing the trophy around? I mean, from the stands, being in the stands, it was amazing to see us, lift this trophy. And for other players like, Frano, for example, I mean, Charlton let him go, I think, didn't he? Didn't they? Didn't they let him go? And
Yeah.
He's come back to the Valley and he's proven a point. So what was the emotions like for yourself and the team as a whole?
Yeah, because it's a tough place to finish your season, Charlton. It's always a tough place to go. But we didn't even worry about the opposition. We just focused on ourselves. And after the game, the emotions were. You're a little bit numb. You're quite because it's quite surreal because you've worked so hard to get there, and then you're just in the moment, and you just you seem to be away with the fairies and just wanting to jump up and down and have a good time and just to get on the phone to your family and stuff and just tell your kids and stuff like that, because I think we touched on it with Eddie. His temperament changed a little bit when he had kids. That was a big turning point for me as well. Having my kids. Bournemouth's been a big part of my life. I have my kids in Bournemouth, and you're providing for someone else as well as yourself. So your kids really do push you on to be better. And you have them in the back of your mind. Obviously, you've got the fans as well who are absolutely loving the occasion. You want to enjoy it and soak it up as much as possible. But yeah, you're desperate to get on the phone to tell your kids and that. So no, it was special in more ways than one. It really was.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. It
was.
Definitely. Well, just to round up, we can't finish off without asking you this one, Pugh. Craig gets the pleasure of this one.
Yeah. So, Mark, 44 appearances, 9 goals, 7 assists. How did you rate your own performances that season, and how does it compare against what you'd done previously in a Cherries shirt?
I'd probably say a solid 8, 8 out of 10. Could have been better, could have got double figures for goals and assists. I remember, chances that I maybe missed. But I was really pleased with my season. But yeah, I mean, the start I had in a Cherries shirt, it was in League One, so it's obviously not quite as good as Championship. So I think I was on about 11, 12 goals by Christmas in that first season before sliding off the pitch and slicing my knee on a sprinkler. So that was, that and this season was probably my best in the Cherries shirt, statistics-wise. I looked like I was going to score a goal every time I got my opponent 1v1. I think that was the big thing, and I was getting crosses in. Me and Matty, we could either come inside or go down the line as well. I think in modern day football now, it's kind of lost that feel of out and out wingers crossing balls into number 9 strikers and scoring goals. I mean, we saw one the other week. Anthony Gordon's ball in for Isak was an unbelievable goal, but you don't see many these days. But when you've got the likes of Jan in your team, and you can either come inside, have a shot, play off him, or that's probably why my stats were a lot better than previous years. But yeah, no, I was really pleased with my season, my contribution, and I think the thing that's pleased me most about my performances this year is because I felt my best. I really focused on my nutrition, my work ethic. I felt like I could run all day. 12 and a half, 13, sometimes close to 14k in games. So like I was running for my teammates and myself, which I think that's what we all did. So yeah, I was really pleased with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Please.
To be honest, I think you should be giving yourself at least a 9, Mark. Honestly, mate,
9.5.
No, you've got to be honest with yourself. I could have got double figures that year. I thought I got booked more, so that gave me a bit of a rating. I got off the referee a few times that season. I'm surprised I didn't get booked for giving was it Fabio a bit of stick when we hammered Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
So yeah, he got booked that day. So. But no, I was really pleased.
You started the party against Bolton. You scored 3 against Birmingham. Yeah, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, Mark. But no, fair enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Cheers, pal.
Well, it's firstly, thank you to both of you for joining us for this, and
Thank you.
thanks to yourself, Neil, for your support and your help with it, and Pugh, honoured to have you on. But Neil, question for you: how would you sum up the legacy of the squad from the 2014-15 season?
Yeah, I mean, I think they go down certainly in local history, don't they? It's they've set the club up for where it is now, what it's achieving now. I think the future's incredibly bright at the moment for the current crop of players and backroom staff and the ownership. It all just seems like it's in place for even more success. And that wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't be there where they are now without these guys. And I think they'll always be fondly remembered. Certainly, from my point of view as an individual, it was the highlight of my career. Was covering this bunch of players. Even if I went back into the newspaper business, I wouldn't have as much fun or enjoyment or pleasure as I got from covering this bunch of players, dealing with them. Most days, the likes of Pugh, we still talk now. It's you sort of build relationships, and and it's special. It was a really special time. They're a special group, and yeah, they'll definitely go down in club history, and they should always be remembered.
Absolutely, yeah, completely echo that. Craig, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, most definitely. And do you know what? It is amazing, and considering what struggles we had, it was only 6 years before this, wasn't it? 6 years before, when we was on -17, the club looked like it was going out of the Football League, looked like at points whether it was going to go out of business. And then this group of players all come together in what you can call a perfect storm, managed by a former player himself, somebody who was so unlucky through injury to have his career curtailed such a young age. He didn't mope about it, brought all these players together. And, yes, we have been promoted, a second time as runners up out of the Championship, but nothing will ever beat this because of, firstly, it's the first time being promoted to the top flight, but it was the combination of the players that had brought us from League One to the Championship, the sensible additions and you could tell that all the players, Mark, absolutely loved each other, would run through brick walls for each other and, wanted to see this football club succeed.
Yeah, it was a special time, and like you say, they were pushing in the same direction. And I think, considering where the club were 6 years before that, it's absolutely incredible. I remember going to London to the Tribunal with Jeff, and he was having kittens because he had to pay $100,000 for me. So yeah, it was tough times. Even League One, they didn't have a lot of money until obviously Max came in, and just went from strength to strength. Eddie played a Eddie and his coaching staff played a huge role in that rise. And obviously, Bretty's goals really did help out massively. And I'll have to chuck Steve Fletcher's name in there, otherwise he'll not be too happy. Chipped in with the odd goal or two every 15 games, like so. But no, it was special bunch, and I couldn't be more pleased for all the lads that were involved, and obviously the fans as well. They deserve that. So yeah, special time.
Oh, most definitely, and it will forever live in my memory. And of course, those famous words. Of course, we didn't hear it at the time, Matt, did we? Because we was at the ground, but it was Pugh, Pugh. That'll do it. That'll do it. And yeah, of course, that opened the door to the other two goals going in, winning promotion, and then winning the title, a week later at Charlton. So yeah, I've got to say thank you, Mark, for what you did for this football club, that season, because I'm sure every single fan will forever be grateful that this team, helped, form the future of this football club.
No, it's a pleasure. It was a pleasure to be a part of, and it was a club that took a chance on me after, getting released a couple of times when I was younger. Obviously, it only takes one good season. I had one good season again at Hereford, and Eddie took a shine to me. I scored 2 goals in the home fixture and 1 in the away fixture at Bournemouth, and the rest was history. It was great to be a part of, and my kids grew up there, and Bournemouth will always be a special part of my life. So no, thanks for having me, and it was a great journey.
Not a problem at all. The pleasure's all ours, and thank you as well, Neil, for everything as well. The book is absolutely fantastic, as you can see. I've got it behind me. Matt's got it behind him as well. An absolute great read as well, and you can still get it on Amazon, can't you, as well?
Yeah, still available. Where's yours, Pewey?
I didn't get 1 cent. Did you get 1 cent, lads? No, I'll get one. I definitely be a good read.
Yeah,
there's loads on you in it, mate. So make sure you get a copy.
Yeah, I will do, pal. I will do, definitely. No, I probably spent a lot of time on that as well. So yeah, 100%, mate.
Yeah, that's good. Great story. So it was always going to make one. I was just privileged to be able to do it. So.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for having me on as well, lads.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and yeah, no doubt we'll speak very, very soon as well.
It's a pleasure, lads. Stay healthy.
Okay.
Yes. In the gym tomorrow.
Take care.
Cheers, guys.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks.
And there we go. That is the 2014-2015 season review with Marc Pugh and Neil Meldrum. And as you can see behind me here is the book, The Fall and Rise of AFC Bournemouth. You can get this on Amazon. The link is in the description below. So go get yourself a copy now. Matt, really enjoyable evening, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great to research it. Again, obviously, refreshing your memory from such a great season. It's going to always be up there, isn't it, as one of the best seasons in history. And, like Neil summed up the legacy pretty much spot on. But yeah, just to echo again, a big, massive thank you to Neil. Been very supportive over the last sort of few months. And of course, my personal trainer, Mr. Pugh. So a big shout out to him, and thank you for his time. And we look forward to our next cherry picking.
Yeah, most definitely. And I tell you what, it's such an enjoyable show to do. Part of me feels sad that we can't relive that whole season from start to finish again. But we've got the memories. We've been there, and I think every Cherries fan who was there, it will live long, forever and a day, in our memories. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell button. Go share it on X, go share it on Blue Sky, share it on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you can, because I'm sure that any Cherries fans who haven't got YouTube or haven't got, social media will enjoy this show and listening to Mark and Neil's views. So again, thank you everybody, and we shall see you in the next cherry picking.
TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.